Guitar Co-op Podcasts. Great Composers. Conceived and presented by Fabio Zanon. We are coming to the last episode of the year 2025. So first of all, I would like to thank you for listening to Great Composers podcast produced by Guitar Co-op. And stay with us next year because we are bringing more of the beloved guitar composers that everybody likes to play and to listen to. And you can also, of course, access the previous episodes where we talk about John Dowland, J.S. Bach, Fernando Sor, Giuliani, Barrios, all the beloved composers for this beautiful instrument that is the guitar. Musical composition, when it comes to classical music, is an activity of extreme intellectual demand. The composer not only faces an infinite challenge of technical issues, harmony, counterpoint, form, orchestration, each one of which takes years to be learned properly, but must also engage with 1,000 years of legacy, history of music, which is still alive and present and being performed and listened to still today. Expressing one's own voice in music is already a challenge. It's a life mission. Creating an original voice, one that sounds like something never before conceived, is a supreme achievement for a select few. Our composer of the month struggled throughout his life to find this voice, a voice that was not only his own, but also meaningful and representative of his nation, Mexico. We are talking about Manuel Ponce. This is Scherzino Mexicano by Manuel Ponce, played by João Camarero, a Guitar Co-op release, which you can listen to in the playlist that accompanies this episode and you can access in the description. Ponce is a much-loved composer among guitarists. He left us a great deal of written music, including a profusion of long and dense works. We never saw him as a kind of innovative composer. Quite the opposite. He does almost everything according to academic models. But there is a certain something about his ideas, an integrity, a nobility that combined with this infallible knack for creating good ideas that sound natural on the guitar, makes us want to keep his sonatas and variations in a very special place in our hearts. He appears in encyclopedias as a founding father of musical nationalism in Mexico. Aside from his guitar works, his music has had very little international circulation. But who was this Manuel Ponce that we only know through his guitar works? This is Anabel Montesinos playing a popular Mexican song by Manuel Ponce, a Guitar Co-op release. The answer to this question becomes more difficult for those who only know his guitar works. Half of them were intentionally written in the style of other composers. I'll explain why in a moment. It seems as if this person who wanted to find his voice did so by trying to imitate the voices of other people. That really makes it difficult. This is Marcelo Caiaz playing Preámbulo and Allegro by Manuel Ponce, written in the Baroque style. Manuel María Ponce Cuellar. He was born on December the 8th, 1882 in Mexico. The country was going through a phase of stability and growth under the military dictatorship of Porfirio Diaz. His motto was order and progress. Sounds familiar. It was an enlightened and submissive dictatorship that modernized Mexico, crisscrossed the country with railroads and telegraphs, created universities, conservatories, and an infrastructure while maintaining the big farm system. Ponce was born in Fresnillo, where his father did the accounting for one of the largest silver mines in the world. As a baby, his family moved to a larger city, Aguascalientes, where he spent his entire childhood. Ponce was a child prodigy. He was the 12th child and learned the piano by listening to his sister's lessons. By the age of 10, he was already playing the organ and singing in a church choir. In 1900, at the age of 18, he went to study at the National Conservatory in Mexico City. In 1904, he moved to Italy, studying music in Bologna. After a few years, he moved again to Berlin, perhaps wanting to pursue a career as a pianist, and study with Martin Krause, who had been a student of Liszt and was also the teacher of Claudio Arrau. In 1908, he returned to Mexico, where he began teaching and giving concerts. This coincided with a politically turbulent period, that of the Mexican Revolution, which lasted until 1920. In 1912, he performed as a pianist in the premiere of his Romantic Concerto for Piano and Orchestra. It was the beginning of the Mexican Revolution, and that national aspect brought much notoriety to Ponce. This is Jorge Federico Osorio playing a movement from Ponce's Concierto Romantico for piano and orchestra. In 1912, Ponce composed the work that should have brought him international fame and fortune, the song Estrellita. But Ponce unfortunately did not bother to register the copyright of the work and never received the royalties he was entitled to. This is me, Fabio Zanon, playing Estrellita by Manuel Ponce in the composer's own arrangement for the guitar, which is also a GuitarCoop release. The violinist Jascha Heifetz played in Mexico in 1923 and heard Estrellita played in a cafe. Enchanted by the melody, he spent the night making an arrangement for violin and piano and played this as an encore during his Mexican tour. From then on, it gained wide international circulation and fame and became part of the soundtrack of countless films, including They Shall Have Music from 1939, where it is played by Heifetz himself. We are listening to Jascha Heifetz playing Estrellita by Manuel Ponce, which you can hear in our playlist that you can access in this description of this episode. From 1915 to 17, Ponce lived in Havana, also teaching piano, but he returned to work as a conductor of the Mexican Symphony Orchestra. In 1920, already a pretty grown man of 38, he won a scholarship to study in Paris with the famous Paul Dukas. In 1920, already a grown man of 38, he won a scholarship to study in Paris with the famous Paul Dukas at the École Normale. What was a well-known and mature composer seeking when he moved to Paris? Jorge Federico Osorio playing Arrulladora Mexicana by Manuel Ponce. It seems that Ponce genuinely did not yet feel ready to be a good composer. His major works still seem like clumsy parodies of romantic works, and he knew he shone the best when writing songs or small pieces for the piano. His inclination was very academic, and poorly made academic music really doesn't work. We see a gigantic improvement in this area because in the 1920s and 30s he wrote really good works and developed his own language. It's a shame that today most of his compositions are forgotten, with the exception of the guitar works. But just listen to this cello sonata written in 1922. This is Manuel Ponce, Sonata for Cello and Piano. Of course, moving to another country involves a life project. Ponce clearly wanted a place in the international scene. He wanted to see his works published and performed in Europe. And that happened, placing his name in history. But that was through his association with the Spanish guitarist Andrés Segovia. This is Andrés Segovia playing Manuel Ponce, Sonata Mexicana. Ponce and Segovia had already met when Segovia played in Mexico and soon became best friends. Segovia really believed in Ponce's potential and tirelessly commissioned and encouraged him to write more and more and more for the guitar. They were close friends, spent holidays together, and Segovia played Ponce's music in pretty much all his concerts. And he also showed his music to other composers to illustrate what good guitar writing was like. Starting with Sonata number 1, the Sonata Mexicana from 1923, there was a vast sequence of pieces through the 20s and 30s, and almost all of them remain firmly in the guitar repertoire to this day. This is a quick overview. In 1925, he wrote the unpretentious and beautiful 3 Mexican folk songs, which have the feel of folk music, but they are melodies of his own creation. GuitarCoop has the beautiful recording of them with Anabel Montesinos. This is Anabel Montesinos playing La Pajarera, one of the 3 Mexican songs by Manuel Ponce, a GuitarCoop release. 1926 brings his Tema Variado and Finale. It's an extremely sophisticated work with an impressionistic treatment of material inspired by the French Baroque. Here we see a Mexican composer aligning himself with the trends of his time, when Debussy and Ravel were writing music with titles like Le Tombeau de Couperin or Homage to Rameau. It's possibly Ponce's most perfect work for the guitar. This is me, Fabio Zanon, playing Theme Variations and Finale by Manuel Ponce, which you can hear complete in our playlist. Just access it through the link in the description. This interest in Baroque music is even more evident in another great work from 1926, the Sonata for Guitar and Harpsichord. Again, one of his best works. The idea of what a harpsichord was still not crystallized. The Pleyel harpsichords of the 1920s were not authentic. They had some features from the modern piano. Today, we see them as detestable hybrids, but the works by Ponce, Manuel de Falla, or Poulenc were written for this kind of instrument. Segovia apparently postponed the premiere of this work for several years with the excuse that he couldn't find a proper harpsichord player to play with, but we know that he played this piece with the pianist José Iturbi. The work only truly came to light after its publication in 1973. It's a modern piece with bold harmonies, with a lot of counterpoint, perhaps even a little too elaborate. We hear Gérard Habiton playing the Sonata for Guitar and Harpsichord by Manuel Ponce. A second sonata that was played by Segovia was lost in the Spanish Civil War. Then we have Sonata number 3 from 1927. It's a very serious and French-like work. It's a favorite of guitarists who have a kind of intellectual leaning. Here, Ponce reaches the apogee of his relationship with the guitar, in my opinion. The music has intricate craftsmanship, chromatic harmonies, really rich counterpoint and complicated modulations, but it's always written in a very organic way for the guitar. We hear Shinichi Fukuda playing Sonata No. 3 by Manuel Ponce, which you can hear in the playlist. Here begins the sequence of pastiches, of works written in the style of, not with a parody intention, it was a very serious intention actually. Ponce wrote with a lot of ease, and Segovia kept encouraging him to do so. There is this classical sonata, Sonata No. 4 from 1927, in the style of Fernando Sor. This is the Jason Vio playing the Sonata Classica by Manuel Ponce, which you can hear in the playlist that accompanies this episode. Then there is Sonata Romantica, Sonata No. 5, dedicated to Schubert, which Segovia called the best sonata Schubert never wrote. It dates from 1928, and it's a miracle of the composer's ability to capture all the gestures, procedures, and accent of another composer. We must remember that Schubert's sonatas were not very well known in the 1920s. Very few pianists playing them. And Ponce mimics the melodic style, this kind of walking rhythm that is so frequent in Schubert, the sudden modulations, the pauses that seem to make the music hesitate. Everything that is Schubert's fingerprint is in there, but Ponce still manages to have his own unique color to it. Like it or not, I find this sonata a miracle of the art of parody. hear Andrés Segovia playing again a movement from Ponce's Sonata Romantica. 1929 brings a case of deliberate falsification. Segovia wanted an efficient work in the Baroque style. We must remember that 1920s marked the revival of early music on the stage. The harpsichord, which was an obsolete instrument, returned to the stage, and publishers rushed to produce modern editions of music that had been hidden in museums and library archives. In Paris, Pujol was publishing tones of lute and vihuela music, with some success, but Segovia wanted a robust Baroque suite to shine on stage. Ponce wrote a suite in A minor, kind of in the style of Bach. This is Marcelo Caiath playing the jig from Ponce's suite in A minor. The correspondence between them shows that Segovia could no longer include more of Ponce's music in his concerts. Otherwise, there would be all Ponce concerts. So they decided to attribute this music to some still kind of obscure composer whose music had not yet been published, and they would announce that as a rediscovery. That's what they did. This music was attributed to Silvius Leopold Weiss, a German Baroque composer. It was a great success, and critics and musicologists did not realize that something was kind of wrong with it. The fact is that this type of falsification was quite common at that time. We just have to remember Fritz Kreisler imitating Italian Baroque music, Giazzotto composing an adagio by Albinoni that was not by Albinoni, and so on and so forth. We hear Andrés Segovia playing a prelude by Manuel Ponce, but attributed to Silvius Leopold Weiss. 1929 was a very productive year. Ponce also wrote 24 preludes in all major and minor keys. It's perhaps his deepest work, although not very efficient as a cycle on stage, because it lacks a good ending. Segovia was dissatisfied with some of them and published only 12. One of the most beautiful is this one in F-sharp major. Ponce creates a kind of a Renaissance fantasy, but sounds strangely like music from Native Americans. Piera da Domo playing Ponce Prelude in F-sharp major. 1929 also the birth of his magnum opus for solo guitar, the Variations and Fugue on Folia de España. What was the extent of Segovia's hand on Ponce's music? Very, very large, and the history of the genesis of this work demonstrates that. Segovia initially writes to Ponce, drawing attention to this theme, the Folia, which was still little known at the time. We just remember that Rachmaninoff wrote his variations on this theme and called them variations on a theme by Corelli. And Corelli was not the author of this theme. He asks Ponce to write brilliant variations in a style on the border between Italian classicism and German romanticism. He also wrote, "If you don't want to use your name, we can attribute that to Giuliani, of whom there is still much to be discovered." Segovia asked Ponce to write many variations, jumping from the high B to the low D, making suspensions in noble polyphonic movement, repeated notes, a large cantabile to make the beauty of the theme appear, and so on. For months, Ponce sent to Segovia groups of 3 or 4 or 5 variations, 13 total. And remember that Segovia was on tour, so they were sent to different countries. Segovia wrote back criticizing what wasn't good and praising what was, asking for corrections, and in the end, he made several experiments with this disordered material and recorded a version with 30 variations, and later published the 20 variations and fugue with what we assume was to be a profound revision and his decision on the order of the variations. I regard this as a highly successful collaborative work. I see no reason to make a negative moral judgment about this type of four-hand procedure. This in no way diminishes the final result. Today, some guitarists like Paul Galbraith or Pablo Marquez have sought other possibilities for the order of these variations with very solid criteria, which I, of course, also admire. But I particularly think that what's missing is the magic that Segovia achieved, making the variations contrast, complement, and contradict each other. It is the difference between the perspective of a concert performer who is bringing the guitar to large audiences and the performer of today who's got a kind of more musicological leaning. It is perhaps the greatest work of late Romanticism in guitar repertoire. listening to the Finnish Ismo Eskelinen playing variations on Folia de España and Fugue by Manuel Ponce. You can listen to the full piece in our playlist. In 1930, Ponce wrote one of his greatest hits, the Sonatina Meridional. Here, Segovia asked Ponce to teach Spanish composers how to write Spanish music. The result is an economical work with a Spanish grace tinged with an almost Mozartian ease. GuitarCoop has the privilege of having Eduardo Abreu's historical recording in its catalog. We are listening to the historical recording of Eduardo Abreu playing Sonatina Meridional by Manuel Ponce, another GuitarCoop release. In the following years, Ponce's output for the guitar became more limited. There is another suite in Baroque style, an arrangement of a sonata by Paganini, and several short pieces, some of them quite beautiful, such as this waltz. Marcelo Cayath playing Waltz by Manuel Ponce. Back in Mexico in 1933, more self-assured, Ponce turned his attention to larger works that could consolidate his reputation and finally tried to define his true identity as a composer. At the same time, he held positions that were in accordance with his prestige: professor, director of conservatory, advisor to the Mexican Symphony Orchestra, founder of festivals, and he was the first composer to receive the National Prize for Science and the Arts. To my taste, one of his best works in this period is the Symphony Chapultepec, which he wrote soon after returning to Mexico. Henrique Batis, conducting the State of Mexico Symphony Orchestra in Chapultepec by Manuel Ponce. There's something curious about Ponce's nationalism. His sources are almost always from peasant Hispanic American folklore. He had very little interest in the pre-Columbian past of the indigenous people like the Aztecs and Mayas, which he considered lacking in refinement for use in so-called serious music. This would be explored later on by one of his students, and later his rival, Carlos Chavez, who had very, very big interest in indigenous music of Mexico. Another work from the 1930s, perhaps his most severe and least communicative, is the String Quartet, dedicated to his teacher Paul Dukas. We are listening to the Cuarteto Latinoamericano playing Manuel Ponce's String Quartet. The other great symphonic work by Ponce that I think everyone should know was written in 1943. It is his Violin Concerto, dedicated to the Polish violinist Henrique, who fled to Mexico during the Second World War. This is a dense, interesting work with a perfect balance between modernity and national identity. It should be part of the international repertoire, in my opinion. This is Henrique playing Manuel Ponce's Violin Concerto. The symphonic work that actually entered the repertoire, again, is a promise often postponed for Segovia, the Concierto del Sur for guitar and orchestra. I think is a masterpiece composed just 2 years after Rodrigo's Concierto de Aranjuez and Castelnuovo Tedesco's Concerto in D major. Ponce conducted the premiere of Castelnuovo's Concerto in Mexico, and I think this experience must have assured him that it was possible to write a concerto for guitar and orchestra, bearing in mind that Segovia played without microphone. The premiere was in Montevideo, also in 1941, with Ponce himself as a conductor. Then they toured the Americas together. These include concerts in most countries, and in New York, Segovia played at Carnegie Hall under the direction of Eric Kleiber. It was very, very well received, but it is a kind of introspective work, and has never achieved the same popularity of the Concierto de Aranjuez. Segovia himself said that it was the most precious jewel in his repertoire, and recorded that in the USA. We are listening to Andrés Segovia playing Manuel Ponce Concierto del Sur with Symphony of the Air, directed by Henrique. Now that Ponce's music has entered the public domain, the cost of performing his works has decreased, and I think it's likely to increase his popularity. I myself have a great affection for this music, has marked important moments in my career. I have won international competitions playing that, and I'm very fond of Concierto del Sur. Ponce died in Mexico in 1948, age 66, soon after having written his last guitar work, the Variations on a Theme by Cabezon. In all this, where is the real Manuel Ponce? In the songs, in the piano music, in chamber symphonic music? Is he an academic composer or an eternal young poet in search for his own expression? Or is he the chameleon who wrote works for the guitar as if they were a game of mirrors? Many want to see Ponce as a repentant pre-modernist. Others see him as a kind of conservative landowner sitting in a beautiful office, wearing a tie and writing with a pen on glossy paper, like so many other American composers at that time. I think he's a bit of all of that. This undefined yet decisive character has an enormous appeal to our Latin American sensibility, because we are always grappling with our own identity that is inevitable. We have prepared a nice playlist with Ponce's music for you, which you can access in the description of this episode, with a lot of music that has been released by GuitarCoop. And I hope that listening to it, you can also ponder over Ponce's music and why it's so appealing for you as it is for most guitar lovers. We have to mention here Henrique Caldas' technical works and the general supervision of Monique Zakseski. Stay with us next year when we are bringing you even more nice music by the great composers for the guitar. Bye-bye. GuitarCoop Podcasts. Great composers. Conceived and presented by Fabio Zanon.